All right, welcome back to the Let's Get Organized series. We are going to be reviewing your transactions in Monarch Money today. The transactions are every time you swipe your debit card, swipe your credit card, and move money from one account to another. You're going to see those in Monarch Money for any account that you have connected into here. And we're going to review those transactions to make sure they are correct. Monarch Money is going to auto-categorize things as they come through, but sometimes they don't get it right. And we want to make sure that we can get an accurate picture of your spending and your income so that we can use that to create your intentional money plan. So that's what we're going to do today. So inside of the transactions, you'll go to the transactions item in the menu bar. And when you look inside the transactions, there are three main types of transactions that we learned about when we set up the categories. There are income transactions, which is showing new money coming into you. There are expenses transactions, which is money being spent by you. And then there are transfers, which is money being moved around from one place to another place by you. So let's walk through how we are going to review these. So on here, you're going to see a merchant name, and then you're going to see the category that it's been assigned to. You'll see the account that it's associated with and the dollar amount that was that transaction. So we see Airbnb was categorized as travel and vacation, and the cost was an expense of $330. I know it's money going out or a debit because it's in black ink. So does that look right? Yes, it does. So then we've got Walmart shopping, $38. Yep, that's shopping. Zara clothing, $29. That was clothing, correct. Tesla auto payment, that's correct. Delta Airlines travel and vacation, that's correct. So you'll just keep going through your transactions until you see something that looks off or not quite categorized in the way that you would. So I'm going to go down until I get to this Netflix one here. Netflix comes through as entertainment and recreation. In my opinion, Netflix is subscriptions. I want to see that under subscriptions for me. So in order to change that, I will click inside of this category title, and then I can search for subscriptions, and then I'll be able to change it. One of the things you can do when you are changing the categories in here is that you can set a rule. You can set a rule to where if you always want this type of transaction to come through as subscription or whatever you're updating it to, you can set a rule so that it automatically happens and you don't have to manually do this every time. So when that pop-up comes up, I'm going to go ahead and select create a rule. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to select subscriptions. And then I see, do I want to create a rule? I'm going to go ahead and say I do want to create a rule. And then here's where I can set that rule up. So over here, it's telling me if the transaction matches this criteria. You can change a lot of different things about the criteria. You can change the information about the merchant, the amount, categories, accounts. If it matches this criteria over here, the transaction that you're changing, then you want to apply these particular updates. So in my case, I want the merchant name, when it exactly matches Netflix, I want to update it to subscriptions. So then I'm going to apply 55 changes to existing transactions. There's an option there. So any of the previous transactions that matches Netflix is going to be updated to subscriptions. And then I can preview those changes to see if it's doing what I really want it to do. So these all say Netflix. They all say $19.99. They're in black ink, so I know it's an expense going out. So yes, I do want to apply that to all of the previous transactions as well. And then I'll hit save. So now, anytime a new transaction comes through with Netflix exactly as the merchant, it's going to update to subscriptions. So I'll show you another example of that. Disney Plus. Disney Plus is another one for me. That's not entertainment. That is going to go under subscriptions for me. So I'm going to search for subscriptions, click on subscriptions, create a rule. So whenever the merchant exactly matches Disney Plus, it will be updated to subscriptions. And I do want to apply it to the 32 previous transactions. I can come over here to preview the changes to make sure it looks how I expect it to look. Yep, that looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and save my rule and then continue to look through the transactions to see if there are any other changes that need to be made. So another change that I'm going to make, which I think is up here, is on a Zelle transfer or Venmo. Here we go. So if you use Zelle, Venmo, CashApp, Apple Pay, a lot of times those transactions will come through as transfers, and you will need to update it as, was it a spending expense or was it income that you earned from somebody through those particular apps? So this one right here is a Venmo. It's showing as a transfer of $85. It's in black, so I know that's money that I spent out of the checking account, and that was for my babysitter. So I'm going to go ahead and update this from transfer to childcare so that I will actually see that I made that expense happen inside of my budget. So pay attention to the Venmo, Apple, Zelle, CashApp. Those ones you may have to update them if they're showing as transfers and put them as the correct expense category or the correct income category. So that's another thing to watch out for. And then here is one thing to watch out for, other income. So I see Costco, other income. It's a credit of $80. I don't work at Costco. I didn't earn any income from Costco, so I know other income is incorrect. What actually happened was I went to Costco on February 9th. I spent $218, but I returned something. So if that happens where you have a return in your budget, you don't want to show that as other income. You want it to go back to whatever category it was spent in. So this was groceries of $218. So on here, instead of other income, I'm going to put this onto groceries to show that that money was credited to my groceries budget. Okay, so that's one thing to pay attention to if you have returns. So if you bought something at Target, originally it was categorized as shopping, and you return it to Target, then the return, when you see the return on there, you want it to show as that same shopping category. Okay, and the other thing I want to point out here is the transfers. So the transfers, remember, is money just moving from one account to another account, moving around. It's not new money that's coming in or new money that's going out. And sometimes you'll see a transfer, two transfers of the same amount, but one that shows a credit and one that shows a debit. So just to kind of clarify that, this is showing $100 was credited into the Ally savings account. $100 was moved out of the SoFi checking account. But this was just a transfer. If you have auto transfers, you might see multiple transfers in there. You want to leave those as transfers. If it's not new money coming in or money that you actually spent that you can recall, then leave it as a transfer. Same thing with credit cards. Your credit card payment is going to come through as a credit card payment, or it may show up as a transfer. And often you will see two transactions for that. You'll see one that shows the money leaving your account, going to the company to pay it. And then you'll see one, a credit that is showing the company receiving that money and crediting you for paying that amount. If you are paying your credit cards in full each month, you don't need to do anything with this. You can leave this as is. If you are trying to pay the credit card down, and let's say you're not doing any new charges and this is just more like a loan payment, then you would update this to a loan payment. Okay? So that's how we're going to handle credit cards in there. And the one that you would update to the loan payment would be the one that is the money going out of your account to show that this is an expense that I'm paying, that I'm trying to pay off. And then right here, we can see the different paychecks that are coming through. Earlier, we had marked that there's Melanie and there's John who receives paychecks. So I would say Meta, that's Melanie's paychecks, and Acme is actually John's. So if you need to update that, then you can do that for the income as well. So I will just change that to John's paychecks. I'm going to create a rule for that so that whenever it comes through, we can get an accurate view of how much income John is bringing in versus Melanie. And so you can also update the income section. Okay, one other thing you can do is you can split transactions. So I'm going to find a Costco one. So Costco is one of those places where you might spend some money on groceries, you might spend some money on household decor. And so if you wanted to split a transaction like that, then you could. Walmart is another place where you might spend some money on groceries, some money on something else. And if you ever wanted to get to the nitty-gritty and do that, there is the option to split transactions. So here in Costco, it's got $218 for groceries, but let's say that only a portion of that was groceries and a portion of that was household decor. So then you can expand that transaction, and then you can find the split button here. And the first thing that I'm going to do, it's still Costco. I'm going to say that part of it was for shopping. And let's say it was $80, that $80 rug that we purchased. And then the other part of it, I can see I have $138.52 left to split. I'll say was groceries. So then I will select the category of groceries under this second split here. I'll put in the cost, $138.52. And then now I will split these into 2 transactions. So now instead of seeing one transaction for Costco, I can see it for shopping and groceries. And then when I look at my spending plan in that budget, then it'll accurately show me how much I actually put towards spending and not be jumbled up with the groceries and the shopping. Okay. And you'll know that these are split because they'll have the little split icon over there. If you ever make a mistake with splitting items, you can always delete these. You can expand it, click on open splits, and you can delete both of these if you wanted to as well. So that's another thing you can do with organizing this if you'd like to really get down to the nitty-gritty of splitting transactions. And then the last thing that we had talked about before was you could add tags if you want to. You can stop the video right now if you want to. If you don't want to get too deep into this, just go through and review your categories. But if you wanted to add tags, like we mentioned in the previous categories video, I've already added some to these travel and vacation ones. So let's assume that you wanted to track your total spending on a certain trip. So this is our Disney 2025 trip. So what I did is to expand this transaction. And then I just come down to the tags. If the tag exists, I can come and select Disney 2025. If it doesn't exist, I can click on create new tag. And so then if I ever wanted to filter and filter only by that tag of the Disney trip, then I can do that so I can see how much I've been spending on that particular thing. So that's another thing you can do is to add the tags. That's more advanced. You don't need to do that. But if you wanted to get in, then you can do that for sure. All right. So next step is to just review those transactions as I've just shown you here, making sure they're up to date. And then after this, we'll be able to look at your spending and to start making your intentional money plan.